Welcome back to Truth Be Told. I'm Noah Friedman, and tonight we're headed high into the Colorado Rockies to a sprawling colonial revival hotel nestled in the mountain town of Estes Park. Elegant, isolated, and eternally eerie, this is the Stanley Hotel. You might know it as the inspiration for Stephen King's The Shining. But long before red rum, haunted hallways, and hedge mazes embedded themselves into pop culture, the Stanley Hotel had already earned its reputation as one of the most paranormally active places in America. Tonight, we explore the story behind the haunting, where history ends and horror begins. The Stanley Hotel's story begins with a man named Freeland Oscar Stanley. Born in 1849, Stanley was an inventor, entrepreneur, and co-founder of the Stanley Motor Carriage Company, a pioneer of early steam-powered automobiles. But by the early 1900s, Stanley was facing a far more personal challenge: tuberculosis. At the time, doctors believed that dry, high-altitude air could help patients recover. So, in 1903, Stanley and his wife Flora made their way west, landing in Estes Park, Colorado. And almost immediately, he began to feel better. Convinced of the region's healing properties, Stanley decided to build a grand hotel, a luxury resort that would bring the upper class out to the mountains, surrounded by fresh air and opulence. Construction began in 1907, and in 1909, the Stanley Hotel opened its doors. It had electricity, telephones, running water, and even a fleet of Stanley steamer cars to shuttle guests into town. It was modern, stylish, and already a bit haunted. From the very beginning, staff and guests reported strange occurrences. Doors opening and closing on their own. Phantom piano music drifting from empty rooms. Cold spots in warm hallways. Footsteps echoing when no one was there. But none of that stopped visitors from coming. The Stanley Hotel thrived for decades as a getaway for the rich and famous. However, the hauntings grew more intense with time. The most legendary spirit? Flora Stanley herself. Guests have reported hearing piano music at all hours of the night, coming from the grand ballroom. When staff go to investigate, the room is empty. Some say they've seen the keys moving, as if played by unseen hands. Room 217, though, might be the hotel's most famous room, and it has a chilling backstory. In 1911, a maid named Elizabeth Wilson was cleaning room 217 when a gas leak caused a massive explosion. She survived, launched through the floor into the room below, but was badly injured. After she recovered, Elizabeth returned to work at the hotel, staying for decades until her death. But even after that, she never really left. Guests in room 217 have reported items being moved, luggage being unpacked for them, or lights turning on and off. Unmarried couples claim to have been physically separated in the middle of the night, as if the spirit of Elizabeth didn't approve of cohabitation outside of wedlock. But room 217 is also famous for another reason. In 1974, a writer named Stephen King checked into the Stanley Hotel with his wife Tabitha. They arrived late in the season and were the only guests that night. The vast, empty hallways, the creaking floors, the dining room full of covered furniture. It all got to him. That night, King had a dream of his young son running through the hotel's hallways, screaming, being chased by a fire hose that came to life. He woke up with the story in his head. That story would become The Shining. King wrote the first drafts of the novel in just weeks, and room 217, the room he stayed in, became an iconic location. Though in the 1980 film adaptation by Stanley Kubrick, it was changed to room 237. The Stanley Hotel was never used for the filming of the Kubrick version, but it was used in the 1997 miniseries, which King himself produced. Still, thanks to King's novel, the Stanley Hotel has become synonymous with supernatural terror. And that notoriety, it brought even more ghost stories to the surface. Today, paranormal investigators regularly visit the Stanley Hotel. Ghost hunters, psychics, and skeptics alike have all tried to make sense of what lingers in its halls. Here are some of the most common and most disturbing experiences. Firstly, there's the 4th floor. Originally used as the servants' quarters, the 4th floor is considered the most active in the hotel. Guests report hearing children running and giggling late at night, even when no families are staying. One spirit, known simply as Lucy, is said to interact with guests using flashlights during ghost tours. Then, there's the vortex staircase. The grand staircase between floors is often called the vortex, a spiral of paranormal energy where people feel dizzy, unsteady, or overcome with emotion. Some believe it's a spiritual pathway, a kind of elevator for the ghosts that wander the building. Next, the concert hall. Built by Stanley as a gift to his wife, the concert hall is another hotspot for paranormal activity. People report applause from empty rooms, and a ghost named Paul, believed to be a former maintenance man, who tells visitors to get out late at night. And finally, there are phantom parties. Several times, guests and staff have reported full-blown parties happening in the ballroom, complete with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. But when someone goes to investigate, the room is silent, empty, as if the hotel is still reliving its glory days, even if the guests have long since passed on. The Stanley Hotel today leans into its haunted legacy. It offers ghost tours, paranormal investigations, and horror-themed events all year round. In 2015, they announced plans to build a horror museum and film center on the property. With backing from genre legends like Elijah Wood, Simon Pegg, and George Romero's estate. Though those plans have evolved over time, it shows just how deeply horror and history are now entwined at the Stanley. Visitors come not just for the views, but for the atmosphere, the legend, and the chance to brush up against the unknown. The Stanley Hotel isn't just haunted by death. It's haunted by memory, the echoes of ambition, glamour, and tragedy that refuse to fade. It's a place where past and present seem to blur, where history comes back to life, and sometimes never really left. Beneath the cobblestone streets, grand boulevards, and sparkling lights of Paris lies something ancient, something unsettling. A shadow world that the living rarely see, but never quite forget. This is the story of the Paris Catacombs, a vast subterranean labyrinth lined with the bones of over 6 million people. A place born of necessity, transformed by ritual, and wrapped in myth. It's one of the most haunted places in the world, and it's all too real. Let's take a walk underground. In the 1700s, Paris was dying from within. The city's cemeteries were overflowing. The most infamous of them all, Les Innocents, located in the heart of Paris, had been used for burials for nearly 1,000 years. But by the mid-18th century, it had turned into a festering pit of decay. Corpses were being stacked in mass graves, buried with quicklime, or left exposed. The smell was unbearable, and the risk of disease was catastrophic. In 1780, a particularly heavy rainstorm caused the walls of a nearby basement to collapse, unleashing a wave of rotting corpses into the street. That was the last straw. The city ordered Les Innocents closed, and the bones exhumed. But the question remained, where do you put millions of dead bodies? The answer was under their feet. Long before the catacombs became catacombs, the space beneath Paris had already been hollowed out. For centuries, the city had mined limestone from underground quarries, the very stone used to build Paris itself. These tunnels ran for miles, mostly uncharted, crisscrossing beneath the metropolis. Many of them were abandoned and unstable, until someone had the idea to repurpose them. Beginning in 1786, city officials began the grim task of transferring human remains from Paris's cemeteries to the subterranean quarries. It was done under the cover of night. Priests led solemn processions. Carts filled with bones rolled through silent streets, and candles flickered between shadows. The dead were dumped in heaps at first. Skulls, femurs, ribs, a grotesque mountain of humanity. But in the early 1800s, a man named Héricart de Thury decided to give the catacombs a makeover. He arranged the bones in elaborate patterns, walls of skulls, columns of femurs, eerie crosses and heart shapes. The result was part ossuary, part art installation, and entirely disturbing. Today, the officially sanctioned portion of the catacombs open to the public is just 1 mile long, but the full network of tunnels stretches for over 200 miles. Most of it is illegal to enter, and many who have tried never came back. Let's get to the hauntings. Thousands of people have walked through the Paris catacombs. Some leave with chills, some with photos, some with scars. Here's what they say they've seen. Shadows with no source. Figures just around the corner, always out of reach. Whispered voices. Sudden, overwhelming sadness. Claustrophobia that hits out of nowhere, even in experienced cavers. But the most unnerving phenomenon? Getting lost. Not just physically, mentally. There are stories of people entering the illegal sections of the catacombs, losing all sense of direction, and then losing themselves. They begin to forget why they came. Panic sets in. Some claim it's a supernatural presence, a force that doesn't want them to leave. In 2004, police discovered something truly bizarre in the restricted zone beneath the 16th arrondissement. While doing a routine patrol of a tunnel, officers stumbled upon a fully equipped cinema. That's right, a secret underground movie theater, complete with a screen, projector, seating, and a stocked bar. A note nearby simply said, "Do not try to find us." Who built it? No one knows. One of the most infamous legends is the story of the camcorder man. In the early 1990s, a group of cataphiles, that's the name for urban explorers obsessed with the catacombs, found a camcorder deep in the tunnels. The tape inside was still intact. It showed a man exploring the catacombs alone, filming as he wandered deeper. At first, it's typical footage. Narrow tunnels, bones on the wall, graffiti. But then, things get strange. He begins to panic, starts running. His breathing grows labored. The camera swings wildly. Eventually, he drops it, and the tape ends. To this day, no one knows who he was. Some believe he was possessed. Others think he simply went mad in the dark and never made it out. The camcorder was real, aired on French TV. The man, still missing. Other stories are even older. Tales of revolutionary ghosts from the French Revolution, monks from the Middle Ages, victims of plague pits. Some people claim the bones themselves speak, not with voices, but with memory. You walk through these tunnels, and the weight of 6 million deaths settles on your shoulders. It's not just about what you see, it's about what you feel. Despite being closed to the public, the deeper catacombs are anything but abandoned. There's a secret community of cataphiles who map, explore, and sometimes live in the tunnels. They carve out rooms, create sculptures, even host underground concerts or raves. They navigate by memory, by maps passed hand to hand, or sometimes by instinct. Some claim to have found rooms filled with bones that aren't part of any official record, places the city never acknowledged. There are rumors of satanic rituals, occult graffiti, hidden shrines. Some tunnels collapse, some flood, some just stop. And one of the eeriest things? Cell phones often stop working. Compasses spin. Lights flicker and die. And in that total darkness, the kind of darkness where even your thoughts feel muffled, you start to hear things. Voices, footsteps, breathing. And once you feel that, you're no longer alone. So why do the catacombs haunt us so deeply? Maybe it's the proximity to death. 6 million people reduced to bones, arranged like decorations. Maybe it's the fact that these tunnels weren't made for the living, and the further in you go, the more that becomes clear. Or maybe it's the idea that beneath every civilization, even the most elegant, the most refined, lies something primal, something we buried, something that remembers us. Thanks for joining me on this descent into the hidden history of the Paris Catacombs. If you liked what you heard, subscribe to Truth Be Told, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who isn't afraid of the dark. Until next time, stay curious, and maybe stay on the surface.